The trash can hit my desk with a crash that silenced the entire office. Coffee grounds splattered across my keyboard. Banana peels landed on the client files I had been desperately trying to salvage. Carol, my boss, stood over me with that cruel smile I had learned to dread over the past 6 months. "You're garbage," she announced loud enough for all 23 coworkers to hear. "Bet this feels like home." Laughter erupted around me. Phones appeared, recording my humiliation. Then the glass door opened. Richard Thornton, our CEO, walked in. Time seemed to freeze. Richard stood in the doorway, his expression shifting from surprise to something I could not quite read. The laughter died like someone had flipped a switch. Carol's smirk wavered, then disappeared completely. She stepped back from my desk, leaving me sitting there with garbage covering everything I owned, everything I cared about. I felt wetness on my cheeks and realized I was crying. Not the dignified, silent tears you see in movies, but the ugly kind that come with humiliation so complete you cannot control your own body anymore. Richard's voice cut through the silence. "What exactly is happening here?" Nobody spoke. Carol opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Sir, I was just addressing a performance issue with Anissa. She missed a critical deadline for the Henderson account, and I thought, you thought dumping trash on an employee was appropriate management technique?" Richard's tone was ice cold. I had never heard him sound like that. He was usually warm, approachable, the kind of CEO who remembered everyone's names and asked about their families. Carol's face flushed red. It was meant to make a point about the quality of her work. "My office. Now." Richard did not raise his voice, but Carol flinched like he had shouted. She walked toward him, her heels clicking on the floor, each step measuring out her mistake. Richard turned to look at me. His expression softened. "Anissa, are you all right?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be professional and composed. Instead, I heard myself say, "She gave me 7 new urgent projects this morning. 7. All of them due before lunch." I physically could not finish the Henderson presentation by the original deadline. I tried to explain, but she would not listen. The office was so quiet I could hear the ventilation system humming. Everyone was watching, but now they looked uncomfortable instead of amused. "I see," Richard said quietly. "We'll sort this out. Take a moment to clean up. I'll be back shortly." He disappeared into the executive wing with Carol trailing behind him like a scolded child. The moment the door closed, the office erupted in whispers. Suddenly, 3 people were at my desk offering napkins and paper towels. Jennifer from accounting brought me water. Marcus from sales started picking up the larger pieces of trash. "That was so messed up," Jennifer whispered. "We should have said something." But they had not said something. They had laughed and recorded it. I took the napkins and started wiping coffee grounds off my mother's photograph, the one I kept on my desk. She had died 3 years ago, and this picture was one of the few things I had left of her. The glass was cracked now. 30 minutes passed. I cleaned what I could, but my keyboard was ruined, and the Henderson files would need to be reprinted. My hands were shaking. I kept thinking about Carol's face when she dumped that trash, the pure enjoyment in her eyes. This was not about a missed deadline. This was personal. Richard emerged from his office. Carol was not with him. He walked straight to my desk, and the office fell silent again. "Anissa, I want to apologize on behalf of this company. What happened here today is completely unacceptable. Carol Patterson has been suspended pending a full investigation into her conduct." He paused, looking around at the assembled coworkers. "Let me be absolutely clear. We do not tolerate workplace bullying in any form. If anyone here has witnessed or experienced similar behavior, please report it to HR immediately." Relief flooded through me so intensely I felt dizzy. Justice. Finally. "As for the Henderson account," Richard continued, "you'll report directly to me on that project. I'm extending the deadline by 1 week. That should give you adequate time to complete it properly." "Thank you," I managed to say. "Thank you so much." He nodded and returned to his office. Around me, coworkers were suddenly very friendly, very sympathetic. They had not been 30 minutes ago when I was drowning in garbage and humiliation, but I was too relieved to care about their hypocrisy. I went home that evening feeling lighter than I had in months. Carol was suspended. Richard knew the truth. Everything was going to be okay. Then I checked my email. The message had no subject line. The sender's address was just a string of random numbers and letters. There was no text in the body, only a video attachment. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But something made me click it. Security footage. Black and white. Time stamped from that morning. The parking lot camera. I watched myself pull into my usual spot at 8:45 in the morning. Our official start time was 8 o'clock. My stomach dropped. The video continued. I watched myself sit in my car for another 3 minutes, finishing something on my phone. Then I went through a coffee shop drive-through on the corner, before finally entering the building at 9:02, 45 minutes late. A new email arrived while I was staring at the screen. Carol has copies. She's not done with you. This was just round one. I sat there in my apartment, alone, as the full weight of what this meant crashed over me. Yes, Carol had given me those 7 projects that morning. Yes, the deadline had been impossible, but I had also been late. Very late. And I had not mentioned that to Richard because I had been too humiliated, too focused on defending myself against the trash incident. Now Carol had proof that I was not the perfect victim I had made myself out to be. She had evidence that I was careless about punctuality, that I stopped for coffee while already late. My entire story about the impossible workload would look like an excuse from a lazy employee who could not manage her time. I tried to sleep that night, but could not. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Carol's smirk. I heard her voice saying, "You're garbage," and now I knew she had ammunition to make that statement stick. The weekend crawled by in a haze of anxiety. I kept checking my email, expecting more anonymous messages, more evidence of my failures. None came, which somehow made it worse. The silence felt like someone watching me, waiting. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 7:15. I would never be late again. My desk had been cleaned by the janitorial staff over the weekend, and I had a new keyboard waiting. Small mercies. At 8:30, Richard's assistant called my extension. "Anissa, Mr. Thornton would like to see you in his office." My mouth went dry. "Now?" "Yes, please." I walked through the office, feeling eyes on me. The executive wing was quiet, carpeted, designed to muffle sound and intimidate lower-level employees. Richard's office was at the end, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Denver. When I entered, my relief from Friday evaporated instantly. Carol was there. So was Janet Morrison from HR. Richard sat behind his desk, and his expression was nothing like the warm concern he had shown 3 days ago. He looked disappointed. "Anissa, please sit down," he said. Saturday, Carol did not look at me. She stared straight ahead, her face neutral, professional. Janet had a folder open in front of her. "We've been conducting our investigation," Richard began, "and some concerning information has come to light. I can explain." I started. He held up a hand. "Please let me finish. Carol has provided documentation that contradicts some of the statements you made on Friday." Carol slid a stack of printed emails across the desk. "These show that you received the Henderson account assignment 2 weeks ago, not the morning of the deadline as you implied. You had 14 days to complete that presentation." I looked at the emails. They were real. I had received the initial assignment 2 weeks prior. But Carol was twisting the timeline, making it seem like I had done nothing for 2 weeks, when the reality was that she had completely changed the project scope 4 times, reassigned me to other urgent tasks, and only finalized the actual requirements the morning it was due. "That's not." I tried to explain, but Carol kept talking. "I also have records from our project management system showing your task assignments. You were not given 7 new projects that morning. You had 3 active projects, all with reasonable timelines." She showed Richard a printout. It was dated that morning, but it was wrong. I had screenshots on my phone, of the actual assignment board showing all 7 projects, but before I could pull out my phone, Carol played her trump card. And finally, there's this. She connected her laptop to the conference room screen. The security footage played. Me arriving 45 minutes late. Me sitting in my car. Me going through the coffee drive-thru. Richard watched in silence. When it finished, he turned to me. You told me Carol gave you an impossible workload that morning. You didn't mention arriving at 9:02 for an 8 o'clock start time. My voice cracked. I had a rough morning. My apartment's hot water heater broke, and I had to deal with my landlord. And I know that's not an excuse, but it doesn't change the fact that Carol completely reassigned my workload that day. Can you prove that? Janet asked. Her tone was not unkind, but it was firm. I pulled out my phone, opened the project management app, went to my screenshots. They were gone. Every single screenshot I had taken that morning had vanished from my phone's photo library. I had them, I said desperately. I took screenshots of everything. Unfortunately, we need documentation we can verify, Janet said, and what we can verify suggests a different story than what you told us. Richard looked pained. Anissa, I want to believe you, but I need to be fair to everyone, including Carol. Based on the evidence, it appears you missed a deadline due to poor time management and tardiness, then blamed your supervisor when she addressed it inappropriately. Inappropriately? I could not believe what I was hearing. She dumped garbage on me, which was wrong, and I addressed that with her privately, Richard said. But it doesn't excuse the missed deadline or the dishonesty about your arrival time. Carol finally spoke, her voice measured and calm. Sir, I'll admit, my reaction was extreme. I was frustrated because this is part of a pattern with Anissa, but I should have handled it through proper channels. I apologize for my unprofessional behavior. She sounded so reasonable, so mature, like the adult in the room. Acknowledging a minor mistake, Richard sighed. Carol, you're reinstated effective immediately, but you'll be required to attend management training on appropriate workplace conduct. Anissa, I'm placing you on a formal performance improvement plan. 30 days. One more incident. One more missed deadline. And we'll have to consider termination. The room tilted. 30 days to prove myself under Carol's supervision again. I understand 3 employees witnessed the morning reassignment you described, Janet said, consulting her notes. Jennifer Kowalski, Marcus Chen, and David Thompson. We interviewed them over the weekend. Hope flickered. They had seen everything. All 3 stated they don't recall seeing any unusual workload assignments that morning. Janet continued. They confirmed you were working on the Henderson account primarily. The hope died. Jennifer, Marcus, and David had all been at my desk that morning when Carol had dumped those assignments on me. They had heard her say I needed to finish all of them before lunch, or I would be written up. They had witnessed everything. And they had lied. That's not true, I whispered, but I could see it was pointless. Whatever Carol had done, whatever she had threatened or promised, she had gotten to them first. I'm sorry, Anissa, Richard said, and he did sound genuinely sorry. But based on the evidence we have, this is my decision. 30 days. Prove you can meet our standards. I left his office in a daze. Carol left at the same time, walking just behind me. As we entered the main office area, she leaned close and whispered so quietly only I could hear. Round 2. Then she smiled at everyone and announced that she was glad to be back, that she and I had cleared up a misunderstanding, and that she looked forward to working with the team again. People clapped, actually clapped. I sat at my desk, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. Sorry, I have 3 kids and a mortgage. I can't afford to make Carol angry. I did not respond. What could I say? That afternoon, I left work early, claiming illness. Nobody questioned it. As I walked through the parking lot to my car, I heard Carol's voice echoing down from an open window on the 3rd floor. She was on her phone. Phase 2 is working perfectly. She thinks it's over, But we're just getting started. By the time I'm done, she'll quit on her own. Trust me, this is just the beginning. I stood there in the Denver afternoon sun, keys in hand, understanding with terrible clarity that this was not about one deadline or one incident. Carol was systematically destroying me, and I had no idea why. I became obsessed with perfection. If Carol wanted an excuse to fire me, I would not give her one. I arrived at the office every morning at 6:45, a full hour and 15 minutes early. I stayed until 7 at night. I documented everything, every task, every conversation, every email. I kept backup copies on 3 different drives, in my personal email, and on a flash drive I carried with me constantly. For 2 weeks, it worked. My performance was flawless. I completed every assignment early, double-checked every detail, never gave Carol a single reason to criticize me. She watched me with those calculating eyes, but she said nothing. Then she called me into her office on a Thursday afternoon. "Anissa, I have good news. You're going to lead the Sterling Tech Industries pitch." I stared at her. Sterling Tech was one of the biggest potential clients we had pursued all year. A $2 million contract. This was either a genuine opportunity or a spectacular trap. "The pitch is Tuesday morning," Carol continued. 9 o'clock. You'll have 5 days to prepare. This is a chance to really prove yourself. 5 days was tight but manageable for a pitch presentation. What materials do we have so far? You'll be starting fresh. They want a complete market analysis, competitive positioning strategy, and a 12-month implementation roadmap. The full package. My heart sank. That was not 5 days of work. That was 3 weeks minimum. "I'll need support," I said carefully. "A team. Everyone else is committed to other projects. This is your chance to shine solo." Carol smiled. "I'm sure you can handle it." I left her office knowing exactly what this was, another impossible task designed to make me fail. But I had no choice. Refusing would be grounds for termination under my performance plan. I worked like I had never worked before. I survived on 4 hours of sleep a night, mainlining coffee and energy drinks. I built market analysis spreadsheets, created competitive matrices, designed implementation timelines. The presentation grew to 72 slides of detailed, data-driven strategy. It was actually good, really good. By Monday night, working until 3 in the morning, I had created something I was genuinely proud of. I saved it everywhere. My computer, the shared drive, my personal email, the flash drive, even uploaded it to 3 different cloud storage services. I went home at 4 in the morning, slept for 90 minutes, showered, and drove back to the office. The pitch was at 9. I would arrive at 7, review everything one final time, and be perfectly prepared. I walked into the office at 6:58, earlier than anyone except the security guard. I logged into my computer, opened the presentation file. File corrupted. Cannot open. My heart stopped. I tried again. Same message. I went to the shared drive. File not found. My personal email. The backup I had sent myself. Error loading attachment. Cloud storage. Access denied. Every single copy was either corrupted, deleted, or inaccessible. I grabbed my flash drive with shaking hands. This was my backup of backups. I had checked it yesterday. It had been perfect. I plugged it in. Empty. Completely empty. Someone had systematically destroyed every copy of 72 hours of work. Someone with technical access, administrative privileges, and the knowledge of exactly where I kept my files. I called it in a panic. Mark from tech support arrived 20 minutes later, examined my computer, and shook his head. System error. It happens sometimes. Corrupted your local files and somehow propagated through your synced accounts. Really bad luck. Can you recover anything? I can try, but it'll take hours, maybe days. I checked my watch. 7:35. The Sterling Tech CEO and his team would be here in an hour and 25 minutes. I had nothing, Carol arrived at 7:40, early for her. She found me staring at my blank screen, tears streaming down my face. Problem? She asked. Everything's gone. The entire presentation. She made a concerned face that did not reach her eyes. Oh no, did you not have backups? I had 6 backups. They're all corrupted or deleted. That's unfortunate. Maybe we should cancel the meeting. Tell Sterling Tech we need more time, which would lose the client, make the company look incompetent, and prove I could not handle high-stakes projects. Perfect ammunition for my termination. No, I said. I'll rebuild it. I had 90 minutes. I opened a blank presentation and started typing from memory. Market analysis, simplified. Competitive positioning. Bullet points only. Implementation roadmap. High-level overview. No detailed data, no sophisticated charts, just bare-bone structure and my own voice to fill in the gaps. By 8:55, I had 23 slides. They were terrible compared to what I had built, but they were something. The Sterling Tech team arrived at 9 sharp. CEO Marcus Ellsworth, CFO Patricia Yamamoto, and 3 senior directors. They settled into our conference room while I connected my laptop with hands that would not stop shaking. I started the presentation. I made it through 8 minutes, watching their expressions grow increasingly skeptical, before Marcus held up a hand. Stop, please. I stopped. This is unacceptable, he said quietly. Unprofessional. Embarrassing. We were told your firm was top tier. This looks like something a college intern threw together during lunch. I can explain, I started, but he stood up. I expected better. Specifically from you, Anissa. He looked at me with something I could not identify. Your mother would be ashamed. The room went cold. I'm sorry, what? Helen, your mother. She would be ashamed of this presentation. How do you know my mother? But Marcus was already leaving, his team following. Patricia looked back once, her expression pitying. Then they were gone. I stood there, trembling, not understanding. My mother had been a teacher. She taught 2nd grade for 30 years, until she retired 8 years before she died. She had never worked in corporate America. She had never mentioned Sterling Tech or Marcus Ellsworth or anything related to marketing and consulting. How did he know her? Carol appeared in the doorway. Well, that went poorly. How did he know my mother? She shrugged. No idea. You should probably head to Richard's office. He'll want a debrief. Richard was not happy. He listened to my explanation about the corrupted files, the impossible timeline, the rebuilt presentation. His expression grew more disappointed with every word. Then he said something that broke reality. Anissa, why didn't you disclose your mother's history with Sterling Tech when you took this assignment? What history? Your mother worked there 20 years ago. She was their finance director. She left under difficult circumstances. My mother was a teacher. Before that, she worked in corporate finance at Sterling Tech. Richard pulled up something on his computer. There was a scandal. Accusations of embezzlement. It was never fully prosecuted, but Marcus Ellsworth was the CFO at the time. He was personally impacted by the investigation. He holds your mother responsible for damage to the company's reputation. I could not breathe. My mother never mentioned working there. She wouldn't have. The settlement included a non-disclosure agreement and a requirement that she change careers. She went into teaching afterward. None of this made sense. My mother, who had volunteered at shelters and donated half her salary to charity, who had been the kindest person I ever knew, accused of embezzlement? It's not true, I whispered. Whatever they accused her of, it's not true. Maybe not. But Marcus believes it is. And you just lost us a $2 million contract because of your mother's history with the client. That's information you should have disclosed. I left his office unable to form coherent thoughts. My mother, dead for 3 years, had worked at Sterling Tech and been accused of stealing. Carol had somehow known this. She had deliberately assigned me to this specific pitch, knowing Marcus would react badly, knowing the presentation would fail, even if I did everything right. But how had she known about my mother? And why did she care? I made it to the bathroom before I started sobbing. That night, I did something I had never done before. I searched for my mother's name online, paired with Sterling Tech Industries. I found nothing. The scandal, if it existed, had been scrubbed from the internet or buried under non-disclosure agreements. I called my father, who I had not spoken to in 6 months since he remarried and moved to Florida. He sounded surprised to hear from me. "Dad, did Mom ever work at a company called Sterling Tech?" Long silence. "Where did you hear that name?" "Work." "Someone knew Mom. Said she had a scandal there." Another silence, longer this time. "Your mother made me promise never to discuss that with you. She wanted to protect you from it." "She's gone, Dad, I need to know." He sighed. "She worked there for 8 years. Finance director. Someone embezzled nearly $500,000 from client escrow accounts. Your mother discovered the discrepancies and reported them. But somehow, the evidence made it look like she was the one who had taken the money. She was fired, investigated, nearly prosecuted. It destroyed her. She could never work in finance again. The teaching job was all she could get afterward. Who actually took the money? She never knew for sure. Or if she did, she never told me." The case was settled quietly. We moved to Denver to start over. She never spoke about it again. I hung up, mind racing. My mother had been framed. Someone at Sterling Tech had stolen money and made my mother take the fall. And somehow, Carol knew about it. Carol, who had only been with our company for 15 years, but was the right age to have worked at Sterling Tech 20 years ago. I searched Carol's background on LinkedIn. Sure enough, before joining our company, she had worked at Sterling Tech Industries, finance department. Same time as my mother. Carol had been there. Carol might have known who really took the money. Carol might have been involved. And now she was destroying me. I had 2 weeks left on my performance improvement plan. I went to work Tuesday morning determined to survive, but something had shifted. The office felt hostile in a way it had not before. Someone had keyed my car in the parking lot. A long, deep scratch from headlight to taillight, $3,000 in damage. My lunch disappeared from the break room fridge. It happened 3 days in a row until I stopped bringing lunch. Rumors started circulating. Someone told David that I was having an affair with Richard, that my constant meetings with him were romantic, not professional. The rumors spread through the office like wildfire. People whispered when I walked by. I stopped sleeping. Not just sleeping badly, but stopped entirely. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling until 4 in the morning, then give up and go to work. I lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. My hands developed a constant tremor. Carol started giving me assignments with deadlines that were physically impossible. Write a 50-page market analysis in 4 hours. Create a complete social media campaign by end of day when she assigned it at 4:30. Audit 3 years of client contracts by the next morning. I tried. I worked through every lunch, every evening, every weekend. I completed maybe 60% of what she demanded, which meant I failed 40% of the time. She documented every failure meticulously. Then, on a Thursday morning, I discovered something that broke me entirely. I kept a few personal items in my desk drawer. A photo of my mother and me at my college graduation, a birthday card she had given me the year she died, and her jewelry, the simple gold wedding band she had worn for 38 years, and the small pearl necklace my father had given her on their 20th anniversary. I had brought them to work because my apartment had been broken into a month earlier, and I felt they were safer with me. That morning, the drawer was empty. The photo, the card, the jewelry, all gone. I filed a report with building security. They checked the footage from overnight. The camera that covered my desk area had malfunctioned. No recording available. I was hollow. Those items were all I had left of my mother. The last physical proof she had existed, that she had loved me. That evening, walking to my car through the nearly empty parking garage, I saw Carol getting into her vehicle 3 spaces away. She was wearing a necklace small pearls on a delicate gold chain. My mother's necklace. She saw me staring. She smiled, touched the pearls, and got into her car. I do not remember making the decision to confront her. I just found myself walking toward her vehicle as she started the engine. I knocked on her window. She rolled it down, still smiling. Yes, that's my mother's necklace. This old thing? I've had it for years. You stole it from my desk. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? She knew I did not. The cameras had mysteriously failed. Maybe you should be more careful with your belongings. Why are you doing this? What did I ever do to you? Carol's smile widened. You existed. You walked into my department with your mother's face and her last name. You applied for a job at my company like you had every right to be there. Like your mother hadn't destroyed my entire career 20 years ago. My mother didn't do anything wrong. Your mother discovered the discrepancies, yes. She reported them like a good little employee. She never wondered who might have borrowed that money temporarily, who might have needed it for a family emergency and planned to pay it back. She just ruined everything with her ethics and her principles. Carol laughed. I spent 20 years rebuilding my reputation, working my way up to department head. And then you waltzed in, Helen's daughter, reminding everyone of that scandal. You stole the money. You framed my mother. I needed that money. My sister was dying, and her cancer treatment was not covered by insurance. I was going to pay it back, but your sanctimonious mother could not wait 2 months for me to sort it out. She reported it immediately, started an investigation, destroyed my life to protect the company's precious money. Carol touched the necklace again. So now I'm destroying yours. Fair trade, don't you think? Give me back hair jewelry. No, I sold the ring yesterday. Got $800 for it. Decent gold content. I'm keeping the necklace though. It looks good on me. She rolled up her window and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking garage, understanding that this was never going to stop. Carol had spent 20 years hating my mother, and now she had a chance for revenge through me. She would not quit until I was completely broken. I had 5 days left on my performance improvement plan. 5 days until Carol could fire me with cause, permanently marking my professional record, ensuring I could never work in this industry again. And I still had no idea how to stop her. I stopped going home. There was no point. I could not sleep anyway, and my apartment felt contaminated somehow, full of memories of my mother and everything I had lost. Instead, I stayed at the office, working through the nights, existing on vending machine coffee and whatever snacks I could buy at the 24-hour convenience store 3 blocks away. Carol seemed to sense my desperation. She gave me one final assignment on Wednesday morning. Audit and correct 3 years of financial reports for the entire department. Find all discrepancies, reconcile everything with client accounts, and present a complete analysis with recommendations. Due Friday morning. 2 days. This was work that normally took a team of 4 people 6 weeks. Carol knew it was impossible. She wanted me to fail spectacularly on the last day of my performance improvement plan, giving Richard ironclad justification for termination. I started working. What else could I do? I pulled up 3 years of quarterly reports, expense accounts, client billing records, revenue projections, thousands of pages of data. Wednesday vanished in a blur of numbers. Thursday disappeared the same way. I did not eat. I barely registered the passage of time. I just stared at spreadsheets until my vision blurred, drank more coffee, and kept going. Somewhere around 2 in the morning on Friday, delirious from exhaustion, I noticed something odd in the Q2 reports from 18 months ago. A client payment of $15,000 that had been recorded as received, but the deposit date was 3 days after the payment supposedly cleared. Strange, but possibly just a bank processing delay. Then I found another one. $8,000, same pattern, payment recorded, deposit delayed by 5 days. I started searching specifically for this pattern. I found 11 instances over 18 months. Small amounts, never more than $20,000, always with a gap between when the payment was recorded as received and when it actually appeared in the company accounts. Someone was intercepting client payments, holding them for a few days, then depositing them. Why would anyone do that unless they were using the money temporarily for something else? I checked the transaction codes. Every single one was processed through Carol's department administrator credentials. Carol was embezzling. Again, I started pulling every related document I could find, my exhaustion forgotten. Payment records, bank statements, client invoices. The pattern was clear once I knew to look for it. Over 18 months, Carol had skimmed approximately $320,000 from client accounts. She was probably investing it during those few days, earning quick returns, then depositing the original amounts. Or maybe she was using it to cover personal expenses and paying it back before anyone noticed. Either way, it was theft. Then I found something else. Buried in the files Carol had given me for this assignment, probably by accident, were old archived documents from Sterling Tech Industries, transfer records from 20 years ago. And there, in black and white, was proof of what had really happened. Carol Patterson, finance associate, had transferred $472,000 from client escrow accounts into an external investment fund. She had signed off on the transfers, her credentials, her authorization codes. The next document showed the internal investigation. My mother, Helen, had discovered the discrepancies during a routine audit. She had reported them immediately. Carol had been questioned, suspended. Then a third document, dated 2 weeks later, Helen Chambers, finance director, identified as primary suspect in embezzlement scheme. Evidence suggests she orchestrated the transfers and is attempting to frame Miss Patterson. Recommend termination and legal action. Someone had altered the records. Someone had changed the digital signatures, modified the authorization codes, made it look like my mother had been the one to steal the money. The document was time-stamped and digitally signed by Marcus Ellsworth, the CFO at the time. But there was a metadata trail buried in the file properties. The document had been edited extensively by Carol Patterson's user account. 3 days after my mother had reported the original discrepancies, Carol had framed my mother. She had stolen nearly $500,000, got caught, and then digitally manipulated the investigation records to make Helen look guilty. And Marcus Ellsworth, either complicit or incompetent, had believed the doctored evidence. My mother had been innocent, completely innocent, and she had died believing she was somehow at fault, that she had failed to protect herself, that the accusations had been legitimate even though she had not stolen anything. I printed everything. Current embezzlement evidence, old Sterling Tech documents, metadata reports showing Carol's manipulation of the records. I made 3 copies of everything and put them in separate locations. My desk, my car, a FedEx envelope I addressed to myself at my home address. It was 5:30 in the morning. Richard would arrive at 8. I just needed to hold on for 2.5 more hours, present this evidence, and finally end Carol's reign of terror. I went to his office at 7:45, knowing his assistant would be there by then to give me access. But the assistant's desk was empty. A note said she had called in sick. I tried Richard's direct office line. No answer. I tried his cell phone. Voicemail. Panic started creeping in. I went to HR, found Janet Morrison's office. She was there, early like me. "Janet, I need to speak with you. It's urgent." She looked up from her computer, her expression neutral. "Of course, Anissa. Come in." I sat down, pulled out the evidence, and spread it across her desk. Carol is embezzling money from client accounts. She's been doing it for 18 months. Here's the proof. Transaction records, discrepancies, everything tied to her credentials. Janet looked at the documents carefully. Too carefully. Too long. "And this," I continued, pulling out the Sterling Tech papers. "This proves Carol framed my mother 20 years ago for embezzlement Carol committed. My mother was innocent. Carol stole the money, manipulated the investigation records, and destroyed my mother's career to cover her own crime. Janet picked up the metadata report, studied it. This is quite serious. I know. That's why I came straight to you. Richard isn't in yet, and I did not know who else to trust. Janet set down the papers and looked at me. Her expression was sad, pitying. I'm afraid I can't help you, Anissa. What? Carol is my sister-in-law. Has been for 12 years. My husband is her younger brother. I've known about your mother for years. Carol told me all about Helen Chambers and what she put Carol through at Sterling Tech. The room tilted. What Carol put her through? Carol is the criminal. That's your interpretation. Carol has a different perspective. And she's family. Janet started gathering the papers, putting them in a neat stack. I appreciate you bringing this to me instead of going straight to Richard. It gives me a chance to handle this quietly. She picked up her desk phone and dialed. Carol? It's Janet. You were right. Anissa just brought me the audit results. Yes, all of it. You'll want to see this. I stood up, grabbed the papers from Janet's desk, and ran. Behind me, I heard Janet calling security, but I was already out of HR, sprinting through the empty early morning office toward the elevators. I made it to my car, threw the evidence on the passenger seat, and started driving. I did not know where I was going. I just knew I could not go back to that office. Carol owned HR. She had probably manipulated the entire investigation into her suspension. She had spent months, maybe years, building a network of protection around herself. And now she knew I had found everything. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. I pulled over to check it, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Photos. My apartment door with spray-painted messages. Thief, liar, fraud. My car, which I was currently sitting in, with slashed tires, I had not noticed yet because I had been so focused on escaping. A close-up of my license plate. Another text. Bring back all copies of the documents. Walk away, or this gets worse. I looked at my tires, all four, completely flat, destroyed while I had been inside the office building. I was not safe. Carol was not just trying to fire me anymore. With $300,000 in current embezzlement at stake, with evidence of the old frame job that could land her in prison for decades, Carol had moved from workplace bullying to genuine threats. I called the police from my car, reported the vandalism. They said they would send someone to take a report. Estimated time, 2 to 3 hours. I could not wait that long. I needed help now. I thought about Richard, but he was not answering his phone. I thought about the evidence I had, how easily Carol had neutralized it by controlling HR. Who could I possibly trust? Then I remembered Marcus Ellsworth's face during the pitch presentation, the way he had said, "Your mother would be ashamed." Not angry. Sad. What if Marcus had not been complicit? What if he had believed Carol's lies too? I pulled up Sterling Tech's website, found their main office address, 23 minutes away. I drove there on my ruined tires, the car limping along at 30 miles per hour, making horrible grinding noises. I left it in the visitor parking lot and walked into their lobby carrying all my evidence. I need to speak with Marcus Ellsworth, I told the receptionist. It's about Helen Chambers. The receptionist made a call. 5 minutes later, a young man in an expensive suit escorted me to the executive floor. Marcus met me in a conference room, his expression guarded. "You have 5 minutes," he said. I spread the documents across the table. "My mother did not steal from you. Carol Patterson did. Here's the proof." I walked him through everything. The original embezzlement, the manipulated investigation records, the metadata showing Carol's alterations, the current embezzlement scheme at our company. I showed him how Carol had spent 20 years destroying anyone connected to the woman who had reported her first crime. Marcus read everything in silence. When he finished, he looked older somehow. Tired. Helen was innocent? Completely. I believed Carol. She was so convincing, so distraught about being accused. She had a sick sister, medical bills. It seemed impossible that she could be lying. He shook his head. I've spent 20 years believing Helen Chambers destroyed our company's reputation for insurance money. I blocked her from every job in the industry. I made sure she could never work in corporate finance again. She became a teacher. She died 3 years ago, thinking everyone believed she was a thief. And Carol went to work for your company to get revenge on Helen through you. Yes. Marcus picked up his phone. Get me Richard Thornton at Pinnacle Marketing Group now. It took 3 tries, but finally Richard answered. Marcus put him on speaker. Richard, Marcus Ellsworth, I need you to listen very carefully. You have an employee named Carol Patterson who is currently embezzling from your client accounts. I'm looking at evidence right now. Another employee, Anissa Chambers, discovered the scheme. Silence on the other end. Then, Marcus, I don't know what Anissa told you, but she's on a performance improvement plan for cause. She's been displaying erratic behavior, making unfounded accusations. The accusations are not unfounded. I have documentation. Carol Patterson embezzled from Sterling Tech 20 years ago and framed Anissa's mother for it. She's doing it again at your company. That's impossible. Carol has been with us for 15 years. She's a department head. So was Helen Chambers at Sterling Tech. And I destroyed her career because I believed Carol's lies. Don't make the same mistake I did. Marcus talked for 20 more minutes, convincing Richard to at least review the evidence. Finally, Richard agreed to come to Sterling Tech's office for a meeting. 2 hours away. Stay here, Marcus told me. Don't go back to your office. If Carol is as dangerous as you say, you need protection. I stayed. Marcus had his assistant bring me coffee and a sandwich I could not eat. I tried to call my friend Taylor to tell her where I was, but my phone died. I had been awake for 47 hours. Richard arrived at 11. He looked skeptical, defensive, but he sat down and reviewed the evidence. Carol's current embezzlement records, the Sterling Tech documents, the metadata proof. This could be fabricated, he said. Call your bank, Marcus suggested. Check those transaction dates against actual deposit dates. You'll find the same pattern Anissa documented. Richard made the call. I watched his face change as the bank confirmed what I had found. The attorney who handled Helen's case at Sterling Tech is still practicing, Marcus said. I've already contacted him. He has the original unaltered investigation files in storage. He's sending them over now. You'll see that Carol Patterson was the original suspect, and the evidence was changed. But Janet Morrison confirmed that Carol has been handling the audit, Richard said. She said Anissa's accusations were part of an emotional breakdown. Janet Morrison is Carol's sister-in-law, I said. She told me herself. She's been protecting Carol. Richard looked sick. I need to verify this. Do it, Marcus said. But do it quickly. Anissa filed a police report this morning about vandalism and threats. This has escalated beyond workplace drama. Richard left to make calls. Marcus looked at me. Your mother was a good person. I should have investigated more thoroughly instead of taking Carol's word. I'm sorry. Just help me stop her, I said. Richard came back 30 minutes later. I've contacted our independent auditors. They're reviewing the accounts now. If this is real, Carol will be arrested, and Janet will be fired for complicity. It's real, I said. I also checked Carol's employment records. She never disclosed working at Sterling Tech. That's a violation of our background check policy. She lied on her application. Richard sat down heavily. If you're right about all this, I've been enabling a criminal for 15 years. The auditors confirmed the embezzlement by 4 that afternoon. $314,000 over 18 months, all traced to Carol's access credentials. The pattern was undeniable. Richard called the police. Then he called me. Anissa, I need you to come back to the office. The police want to interview you and we need your testimony for the investigation. Carol threatened me. I'm not safe there. Security has been notified. Carol is being detained. You'll be protected. I did not want to go back. but I needed to see this through. Marcus offered to drive me, and I accepted. We arrived at 6:30. The office was nearly empty. Richard met us in the lobby with 2 police detectives. "Carol is in the conference room," Richard said. "She's agreed to talk without a lawyer present. She seems to think she can explain everything." The detectives wanted to set up a formal interview, but I had a different idea. "Can I talk to her first? Just for a minute?" One detective frowned. "That's not standard procedure. She stole my mother's jewelry. The necklace she's wearing right now belonged to my mother. I want to confront her about it before you arrest her." Richard nodded. "I'll allow it. 5 minutes," supervised. We went to the conference room. Carol was there with Janet. When Carol saw me, she smiled. That same cruel smile from the day she dumped garbage on my desk. "Anissa, come to gloat? Come to get answers. Why did you frame my mother?" "I told you. She was going to ruin my life over money I was going to pay back. You stole nearly $500,000. I borrowed it. My sister needed cancer treatment. That doesn't justify destroying an innocent woman's career." Carol shrugged. "Helen should have minded her own business." I looked at the necklace. "Give me back my mother's jewelry." "No. Consider it compensation for what Helen did to me." "You mean for what you did to yourself?" Janet spoke up. "Carol, maybe you should stop talking." But Carol could not stop. I realized she had been waiting 20 years to say these things, to justify her actions to someone who would understand what she had lost. "Your mother was self-righteous and stupid," Carol said. "She thought ethics mattered more than human life. My sister died because Helen reported the money before I could get her the treatment she needed. So yes, I framed her. Yes, I made sure she could never work in finance again. And yes, when you applied to work here, I saw my chance for real revenge. By doing the same thing again? Stealing more money? By making Helen's daughter suffer the way Helen made me suffer. By taking everything from you the way she took everything from me." Carol touched the pearls. "I even took her jewelry, the last pieces of her you had left." "How did that feel, Anissa? Did it hurt?" "You're confessing," I said quietly. "You realize you're confessing to everything." Carol's smile faded. She looked around the conference room for the first time. Really looked. That was when she saw my phone on the bookshelf behind her, half hidden between corporate directories, its camera pointed directly at her. "You recorded this," she whispered. "Every word." The detectives entered the room. Richard was with them, and behind them was a lawyer I did not recognize. "Carol Patterson," one detective said, "you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy." As they read her rights, Carol stared at me with pure hatred. "You'll never find the ring. I sold it. It's gone forever." Janet stood up. "I want a lawyer." "You'll need one," Richard said coldly. "You're fired, and we're pursuing charges for obstruction and conspiracy." They led Carol away in handcuffs. Janet followed in her own pair of handcuffs, her face pale. I stood in the conference room, victorious and empty. Carol was arrested. The embezzlement was exposed. My mother's name would be cleared, but the ring was gone. My mother's wedding ring, the one she wore for 38 years, the one I had planned to wear at my own wedding someday, was sold to some pawn shop or jeweler, lost forever. I had won, but Carol had made sure I lost something irreplaceable in the process. 3 months passed. Carol and Janet both faced criminal charges. Carol was looking at 10 to 15 years for the combined embezzlement schemes and fraud. Janet took a plea deal and received 2 years probation for obstruction of justice. The story made the local news. Employee exposes 20-year conspiracy ran in the Denver Post. I gave one interview, told my mother's story, and then declined all other media requests. I did not want fame. I wanted peace. Richard Thornton personally apologized in a company-wide meeting. He offered me Carol's former position as department head with a 40% salary increase. I accepted, but only after securing a promise that the company would implement independent HR oversight and mandatory reporting procedures for workplace harassment. Sterling Tech Industries issued a formal apology for their treatment of my mother. Marcus Ellsworth wrote a letter that he gave me in person, acknowledging his failure to investigate thoroughly, his role in destroying Helen's career, his regret for believing Carol's lies. He offered me a consulting position bridging both companies, working on corporate ethics and financial transparency initiatives. The three coworkers who had lied for Carol, Jennifer, Marcus, and David were demoted and transferred to different departments. They each apologized privately. I accepted their apologies but did not forgive them. They had chosen their mortgages over the truth, and that was something I could not forget. The money Carol had embezzled was recovered. The company made restitution to all affected clients. Our reputation took a hit, but Richard's transparency about the situation and immediate corrective actions helped rebuild trust. Sterling Tech established a scholarship in my mother's name for women pursuing careers in finance and accounting. The Helen Chambers Memorial Scholarship would help 20 students each year. Marcus personally funded it with $500,000, the exact amount Carol had stolen 2 decades ago. I started sleeping again. The nightmares faded slowly. I gained back the weight I had lost, stopped jumping at shadows, learned to trust my coworkers again. Taylor, who had supported me through the worst of it, became closer than a sister. She helped me repaint my apartment door, replace my car tires, rebuild my sense of safety, but I mourned the ring. Every day, I thought about my mother's wedding band, somewhere in the world on someone else's finger. That loss ached in a way the other victories could not heal. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon 4 months after Carol's arrest, a package arrived at my office. No return address. Just my name and the company address in neat handwriting. Inside was a small jewelry box. I opened it with shaking hands. My mother's ring. The simple gold band, slightly worn, engraved on the inside with my parents' initials and wedding date. There was a note. Dear Anissa, I'm Carol's daughter, Bethany. We've never met. I haven't spoken to my mother in 6 years because of the person she became after my aunt died. I never knew the full extent of what she had done until the trial. I found this in her safe deposit box while helping my father organize her affairs for the legal proceedings. I looked up the inscription, realized it wasn't hers, and knew it must be yours. I also found documents about what she did to your mother. I'm horrified. I'm ashamed. My mother is a person I no longer recognize. Perhaps she never was the person I thought she was. But you deserve to have this back. Your mother's legacy deserves to be honored, not tarnished. I'm so sorry for everything she did to you. I hope this brings you some peace. Sincerely, Bethany Patterson. I sat at my desk holding my mother's ring and cried. Not sad tears this time. Relief, closure. Gratitude for the daughter of my enemy who had chosen to do the right thing even when it meant confronting her mother's crimes. I had thought Carol's final act of cruelty, selling the ring, would haunt me forever. But even that had been undone. Even that wrong had been righted. That evening, I visited my mother's grave for the first time in months. I told her everything, about Carol, about the framing, about the cleared name, and the scholarship, and the ring. I told her that the world finally knew she had been innocent, that her reputation was restored, that she had been right to report the embezzlement even though it had cost her everything. You were always right, Mom, I said to the headstone. You always did the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it destroyed you. I understand now why you never told me about Sterling Tech. You were protecting me from this ugliness. But I wish you'd known before you died that you were innocent, that everyone would eventually know the truth. I put flowers on her grave, the yellow roses she had always loved, and promised to wear her ring at my wedding someday. When I found someone worth marrying, someone who valued truth and integrity the way she had, I would wear her ring and think of her. The next day, I started my new role as department head. The team was nervous, unsure how to act around me after everything that had happened. I called a department meeting and addressed it directly. I know the last few months have been difficult. I know some of you witnessed things you wish you had handled differently. I'm not interested in dwelling on the past. What I care about is building a department culture where people feel safe reporting problems, where bullies don't thrive, where doing the right thing is rewarded instead of punished? I looked around the room at the 23 faces, the same people who had laughed when Carol dumped garbage on my desk, who had filmed my humiliation, who had turned their backs when I needed support. We all make choices in moments of crisis, I continued. Some of you made choices you regret. That's human. What matters now is what we build together going forward. If anyone in this department ever feels harassed, threatened, or unsafe, my door is always open, and I promise you, I will listen, I will investigate, I will protect you. That's my commitment as your department head. Slowly, the team started to relax. We had a long way to go to rebuild trust, but we were starting. That was something. 6 months after Carol's arrest, I ran into Marcus Ellsworth at a corporate ethics conference where we were both speaking. He was presenting on the importance of thorough investigations and not accepting easy answers. I was talking about workplace retaliation and the courage it takes to fight back against powerful adversaries. After our panels, we had coffee together. Your mother would be proud, Marcus said, not just because you cleared her name, but because you did it with integrity. You could have gone to the media first, destroyed the company's reputation before we had a chance to make things right. But you gave us the opportunity to do better. That's what she would have wanted, I said. She always believed in redemption, in giving people chances to correct their mistakes. I wish I had known her better. I wish I had trusted her more. She knew you weren't malicious. She told my father once that Marcus Ellsworth was a good man who made a mistake. She never blamed you. She blamed Carol. We talked for an hour about the changes we were both implementing in our companies, the ethics training, the transparent reporting systems, the protections for whistleblowers. We were both trying to build workplaces where what happened to my mother could never happen again. Before we parted, Marcus said, the scholarship fund has already helped 47 students. We're expanding it next year. Helen's legacy is helping build the next generation of ethical finance professionals. That's powerful. I thought about that on my drive home. My mother's career had been destroyed by lies, but her name was now attached to something that would outlast both her and me. Students who never knew Helen Chambers would benefit from her story would learn the importance of standing up for truth even when it costs everything. That night, I wrote a letter I would never send, addressed to my mother. Dear Mom, I understand now why you reported Carol even though it destroyed you. You couldn't live with yourself if you had stayed silent. The money belonged to clients who trusted the company. Someone's pension fund, someone's life savings, someone's dreams were in those accounts. You protected them even though no one protected you. Carol thought revenge meant making me suffer. But what she didn't understand is that suffering isn't the opposite of winning. Sometimes suffering is the price you pay for doing what's right. You paid that price. I paid that price, but we both won in the end because we kept our integrity. I'm wearing your ring as I write this. It's back where it belongs, just like your reputation, just like the truth. I love you. I miss you. And I'm so grateful you taught me, by example, what courage really means. It's not about being unafraid. It's about doing the right thing even when you're terrified of the consequences. Thank you for being my mother. Thank you for being my example. Thank you for everything. Your daughter, Anissa. I folded the letter and put it in my mother's jewelry box, next to her ring and necklace. Someday, if I had a daughter, I would give her these things and tell her about her grandmother, Helen Chambers, who did the right thing even when it cost her everything, who was framed and destroyed, but whose legacy eventually shone brighter than any lie. The battles we fight aren't always about us. Sometimes they're about wounds and grudges that began long before we arrived. Evil people exist, and sometimes they target the innocent to satisfy old vendettas. But truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it's buried. Stand up for yourself even when you're terrified. Document everything. Trust that integrity matters, even when it seems like the liars are winning. Most importantly, the people who loved you leave legacies worth fighting for. My mother's name was cleared not because she could fight for herself, but because I refused to let injustice stand. In protecting her memory, I discovered my own strength. Real victory isn't just defeating your enemy. It's reclaiming your dignity, your truth, and honoring those who came before you. It's building something better from the ashes of what was destroyed. It's turning pain into purpose and tragedy into legacy. Carol took so much from me. My sense of safety, my mother's jewelry, months of my life spent in fear and exhaustion. But she couldn't take what mattered most. She couldn't take my integrity. She couldn't take my mother's true legacy. She couldn't take the truth. And in the end, the truth was the only thing that mattered. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up against someone more powerful than you at work or in your life? How did you find the courage to fight back when everything seemed stacked against you? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else who's facing their own battle right now. If this story moved you or reminded you that justice is worth fighting for, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about everyday courage and the power of standing up for what's right. And share this with someone who needs to hear that the truth always wins eventually, even when the journey is painful. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you never have to face what I faced, but if you do, I hope you remember that you're stronger than you know. Your truth matters. Your integrity matters, and you deserve to fight for both. Take care of yourselves. Stand up for what's right. And never let anyone make you believe that you're garbage. You're not. You never were. And you never will be.